Hello, American viewers. I'm going to be talking about the 2021 New Jersey gubernatorial debate, or more accurately, I'm going to be covering it as it's happening, so live commentary. But real quick, we're going to be talking about how plausible it is for us to win the 2021 gubernatorial election in New Jersey, given that it is such a blue state at the general election level. That being said, John Corzine in 2005 won by about 12. In 2009, Chris Christie, fat fuck, beat John Corzine by about 4%. Keep that in mind. So it is winnable. Now, in a wave year like 2009, Chris Christie won. In 2013, which would have not have been a good year to be a Democrat, Chris Christie won by 22 points. Again, that wasn't such a competitive election, though. A competitive election like 2009 was much closer, so keep that in mind. Okay, and Chris Christie in 2009 got 1.1 million votes. In 2013, with much lower turnout, he got about 1.3. Okay, keep that in mind. Now, Phil Murphy, who went against a Republican just after Chris Christie left office with a very low approval rating, beat the Republican by about 15. Okay, so in 2017, the most recent election, where obviously it was a Dem year, we lost by about 15. Now, if you adjust that to a normal setting, it'd be like us losing by maybe 10. And in a Republican year, maybe we'd lose that election by 5. So keep that in mind. So it's looking pretty bad for us. Anyway, so in terms of the Republican, we're talking about Jack Citarelli, or whatever Italian name he has, 59 years old. In terms of experience, the guy was born in New Jersey. He also has grandparents from Italy, so he's like third or fourth generation. He has a BS degree and an MBA in finance, okay, and accounting. So he has a decent career in terms of what he selected as the diploma, right? And he was involved in politics for the last 30 years, so he's a career politician as well. So keep that in mind, okay? And he got second place in the Republican gubernatorial election in 2017, which is also interesting, okay? In terms of his legislative work, he's also been a lawyer or a professor. Who cares anyway? Let's go on to the actual debate now. Before the debate starts, I will give the prediction as of right now, before seeing the debate, that I believe that the chances for the Republican to win the election against Murphy, who's the current Democratic governor, is probably less than 20%. I also expect the Republican candidate to do a 6 out of 10 performance, in line with Glenn Youngkin's performance against Terry McAuliffe in Virginia. Just that I believe that Chris Murphy, or whatever his name is probably going to be a 4 out of 10 as well. Okay, so pretty substandard to above average performances from either one. And if we look here, what is the guy's name? So we have former Assemblyman Jack Citarelli versus Phil Murphy. Not Chris. Not like it's a big difference. And we're going to move on forwards to a more important timestamp because I cannot stand waiting. Okay.
The candidates will be answering questions posed by Brian and myself, as well as questions from our media partners, including Amanda Hoover from New Jersey Advanced Media, Adriana Vargasino from Univision 41, and the candidates will also answer questions from Rutgers Eagleton Institute of Politics and Rutgers School of Public Affairs and Administration, as well as several submitted through Twitter.
As you'll see behind us tonight, we have a significantly smaller audience in attendance here tonight.
Who cares? Plexiglass, really? Pussies? Okay, wait. All right.
Tonight, we have a significantly smaller audience in attendance here tonight. That's in adherence with COVID-19 protocols. We have asked them, and they have agreed several times, to refrain from applause or any other disruption.
Under the debate rules, the candidates to whom the question is posed will get 1 minute to answer, followed by a 40-second rebuttal from the opposing candidate. The candidates have agreed to a 1-minute closing statement at the end of our debate, and by prior draw, the first question comes from Brian to Mr. Murphy.
Mr. Murphy, Mr. Citarelli, thank you both for being here tonight. A spirited conversation lies ahead. Mr. Murphy, the first question is for you. As you know, New Jersey was hit particularly hard.
First problem. Murphy is a couple inches taller than the Italian. That's not a good look.
Hurricane Ida. In fact, it had the highest death toll of any state. Your opponent has made this an issue, accusing you of possibly costing lives by responding too slowly, specifically waiting until 10 o'clock the night of September 1st, the very night the storm hit, to declare a state of emergency. By contrast, Pennsylvania's governor declared a state of emergency 12 hours sooner. Sir, should you have acted more quickly?
First of all, it's really good to be back here. I want to thank the moderators, the reporters, good to be with the assemblyman, everybody here, especially my wife and 3 of our 4 kids and our daughter watching at home. It's an honor to be back, and it's hard for me to believe it's been 4 years, and we've been pounding away on that stronger fare in New Jersey every day for the past 3 years and 9 months, whether it's minimum wage, millionaire's tax, affordable health care, affordable college. We've come a long way, but we have a long way to go. We convened on that day at 10 a.m., all 21 counties, a call with the Office of Emergency Management, the National Weather Service. We declared our operations for emergency open at noon. We did a press conference at 1. We constantly socialed and were out there. I was on the phone with countless mayors and obviously visited a lot of places afterward. I would just say a big contrast is what we're going to do about the environment to hopefully prevent this from happening again. My opponent says we're going too much, too fast, too soon. I see that differently.
Mr. Citarelli, to choose.
Okay. That was his first statement or response. And I hate it when politicians do this, but they're like, I want to thank you, the college, so-and-so, the moderators, the audience. Shut the fuck up, dude. We don't care. Like us watching University, I don't give a shit. Okay, I don't care. You're wasting 10 or 20 seconds every time. I want to think my kids, like, shut up. This guy probably doesn't even take care of his kids, so knock it off. And again, the butthole eyes, I think, and the eyebrows are creepy. I don't like them. And the hairline is abysmal, and the optics of this are important, okay? And next point would be he necessarily, unlike a lot of other people, is making this somewhat of a like, okay, yeah, I did fuck this up, but I won't acknowledge that I fucked up the hurricane, as well as I'm going to blame it on climate change and then say this Republican is against fixing future hurricanes, which is not a good selling point. I feel like this is a area of attack where the Republican has an opportunity to lessen the chance of Murphy being reelected as governor.
40 seconds.
Many thanks to the moderators and to all those attending tonight and all those watching from home. With regard to Tropical Storm Ida, if ever we needed a get the hell off the beach moment, this was it. The declaration of state of emergency increases urgency and seriousness throughout the state. Ours came 13 hours, I believe it was after the Pennsylvania governors. 2 hours after the tornado. 1 hour after the flash floods. And there are 30 fewer New Jerseyans with us today. So it does beg the question, what information did the Pennsylvania governor have available to him and his administration that our governor did not? 13 hours after the Pennsylvania governor's declaration of emergency came our declaration of emergency. It begs the question.
As the format will hold tonight, sir, if you choose, you have 20 additional seconds.
Yeah, our actions are crystal clear. And I think the big, not only do we mourn the loss of those 30 blessed folks, and I met, for instance, Mrs. McGee in Irvington, who lost her husband James and her daughter Shanique. Tragic, tragic, tragic. But to say too much, too soon, too fast on climate resiliency is not looking at the facts. These storms are coming more frequently with more intensity. God bless all those whose lives were lost.
Okay, no good defense on the hurricane response. He's just saying, look, I was busy. I was calling a lot of people. That's why I, messed up the emergency declaration. And ultimately, we need to prevent the next one, which is logical if you're an idiot, I guess. According to the leftist, climate change influences the creation of hurricanes. And to that, I would say, who cares, honestly? It's so immaterial. How are you supposed to metric that? Look, if we completely rearrange our economy and our production of energy, we will marginally change the temperature, which will then marginally change the odds of hurricanes in the distant future. See how autistic that is? What a waste of time. Nobody cares.
Mr. Murphy, thank you. And this next question goes to you, Mr. Chittarelli. And I'd like to ask you about what's come to be known as Chittarelli's 7 words. Children are not vulnerable to this virus, referring to COVID-19. You disagree with your opponent's mask mandate in schools. Meanwhile, COVID cases in kids have increased 240% since July, and 30,000 children were hospitalized with COVID during the month of August. Do you still stand by those words, or do you want to change your position?
First, let me say with regard to the governor's response a second ago, Tropical Storm Ida response is not about climate change. It's about saving lives. And the delay in the state of emergency is what cost lives, I believe, in New Jersey. Listen, I've done hundreds of interviews since I declared for governor in January 2020, and you wish you could always say it perfect. Maybe I could have said that perfect and that more perfect in that interview, but my position really is not inconsistent with what the CDC has said all along with regard to the COVID virus as it caused the pandemic last year. Children in general are not as susceptible to serious illness and death as adults are from the COVID-19 virus as we know next year. The Delta variant is different, and we need to be vigilant in protecting our most vulnerable. The statistics you rallied off, I think, are national statistics. The really good news here in New Jersey is that 3 out of 4 adults are vaccinated, and we are not seeing as many cases amongst children. Of course, 1 is one too many, and I will always preserve and protect safety of our children.
I would just say that tonight we have 21 precious kids in
I don't think they convinced a single person about any
the
particular
ICU
thing.
or in the emergency or the intensive care unit with COVID. Again, there are going to be many contrasts tonight. I think this may be among the biggest. You can't look for wiggle room on vaccines and your body, your choice. You can't ignore the science as it relates to masking. It is crystal clear. It's crystal clear. And the tragedy, a year and a half ago, nobody had a playbook. The tragedy today is we have the playbook. We know what works, and the Assemblyman and a bunch of governors in the Deep South are choosing to throw that playbook out the window, and it's costing lives.
Mr. Chittarelli,
It is a
20
deadly
seconds.
virus. There are people that are very vulnerable to this virus. My mother has lost a number of fellow residents.
Okay, with that Murphy statement, again, what's going on with the hairline? Like, it looks like he has the very front part dyed purple a little concerning. Anyway, he says, okay, well, we can't do my body, my choice, and we can't play games. Like, okay, so he's saying no nuance. Fuck y'all. I'm going to force the COVID stuff on you. And if it pulls over 50, I'll win. So again, he's not playing this well. He's basically saying, okay, I have a king and a 7. Okay, I'm going to win. I'm going to hold. Not a smart idea. So yeah, this could be a lot closer of an election than otherwise because he's not playing towards the middle ground because he is that confident that he will win without like appealing to moderates, which is interesting.
At the long-term care facility that she works at. And so as governor, I've said it once, I'll say it again, and I'll repeat it when I'm governor. My job is to promote, preserve, and protect the human health and safety and well-being of all New Jerseyans, including those who are most vulnerable, like seniors, including all those that died in our nursing homes because of decisions made by this governor.
But again, you stand by your words that children are not vulnerable to this virus.
I think what I said is that if I had the chance to say it again, I would say it differently or more perfect. My position is consistent with the CDC with regard to the virus last year. Children are not as susceptible to serious illness and death as adults are.
I would just say that you are also saying on many occasions, it's up to you if you want to get vaccinated. It's your choice. You wouldn't have masking in school. We know those are the number 1 and 2 things, the weapons that we have that will keep people healthy and alive.
Vaccinations do keep people alive. I'm vaccinated.
As am I.
I'm vaccinated. I promoted my vaccination. I encourage people to get vaccinated. Do I believe that government has a right to tell people they have to take a medicine? No, I don't. My job is to provide information.
Whoa, what the fuck happened? So they were told not to clap, so that's interesting as to whether or not he has a ton of Republicans or people that like him in the audience, or if this is just like a random audience, in which case, wow, that must have really resonated with the New Jerseyans. And in terms of mask mandate policy, To say that is like our main weapon to stop the virus is asinine. Not that I care about stopping the virus, by the way. I don't care. It's not a big deal. But anyway, yeah, no, the mask doesn't do anything at all. Mask like the paper mask you put on, the blue one, stuff like that. Anything under a KN95 or whatever does virtually nothing, and you might as well just put your fucking hand in front of your face to stop the virus. Okay, so no, masking does literally nothing other than inconvenience people and make people feel uncomfortable, like wearing a sweater in June in Phoenix. Okay, so let's let it play.
My job is to provide the public with all the information they need to make an informed decision, and I would encourage people to get vaccinated. And if people who are vaccinated feel very comfortable wearing their masks, I encourage them to wear their masks. Do I believe that we should have a student mask mandate or mask children of 2 years of age? I think that's a parental choice.
Mr. Murphy, the next question is for you. It follows on this point, so you can talk more about that. On March 31st of 2020, you adopted New York State's rather controversial directive, which required nursing homes to admit patients regardless of their COVID status, and that policy also forbid those nursing homes to test for it. Several medical organizations disagreed with that plan. What followed, as we now know, was 8,000 deaths in New Jersey nursing and veterans homes, a third of the state's COVID deaths. Frankly, sir, did you make a mistake that cost some of your state's most vulnerable citizens' lives?
First of all, let's acknowledge the scale of this tragedy. Over 27,000 losses of life, and the tragedy within the tragedy is long-term care and our blessed veterans. And New Jersey was not unique. This happened all over the country and all over the world. With all due respect to the premise of your question, we were crystal clear about the terms upon which these residents, by the way, it's their home, these residents would return to their homes. They needed to be separated, and again, this was crystal clear. By floor, by wing, by building, the staff that served them had to be separated. And we were crystal clear, and we were unequivocal about that. But again, a tragic loss of life. But I have to step back. The bigger picture, saying that it's your call and governments can't mandate a vaccine or no masking is akin to supporting drunk driving. It impacts both the person who's driving drunk, but all the rest of us. That's not the way we beat this. We can't beat it that way.
Okay, that was a really good rhetorical position to take. What you're doing is drunk driving advocacy, right? So everybody's against that. Therefore, he's going to gain ground with that for people that are dumb enough to believe what he just said. Obviously, drunk driving is a lot more lethal than not taking precautions about the virus. And even the precautions that people do recommend, like the vaccine and like the mask, are either completely ineffective or are way less effective than they're being sold as, and they have a litany of side effects, especially the jab and not so much the mask, obviously. So this guy's fear-mongering, and it's working apparently, so that's something to note.
That sounds like a terrible contradiction to me because the policy the government put in place for teachers is you can get vaccinated or you don't need to, or you don't want to. And if you don't want to, you have to be tested twice a week. He gave teachers a choice. And those teachers will not start being tested until mid-October, 7 weeks after school starts. With regard to nursing homes, New Jersey leads the nation in nursing home deaths because Phil Murphy forced nursing homes to take in COVID-19 patients. There's even a public record out there from one of the nursing home operators saying on a conference call with his Department of Health, you realize if you do this, people will die. And making matters worse, he never gave nursing homes PPEs, personal protective equipment, or test kits in the very early stages of the pandemic when he forced those nursing homes to take in COVID-19 patients.
Mr. Murphy, facts matter. What you've just said in both cases is just not true. We were crystal clear. Again, these are residents returning to their home. And so we said, you must separate them, and you must separate the staff. Importantly, again, folks, this is not, you make decisions based on the data, the science, the facts. You don't put your finger in the air and see which way the political wind is blowing.
He asked the nursing homes to do the impossible. Nursing home operators told him this was going to be an impossibility in terms of keeping people safe, and that's why he granted legal immunity to nursing homes. So he forced the
if nursing homes didn't do the right thing, they were inspected, they were fined, and they'll be taken, they'll pay a price for that.
Mr. Murphy, I'd like to follow up.
Okay, that mistake was clearly documented because there was booing. Now, he stuttered. When you stutter in the debate where you're rebuking something, like, okay, did you cheat on me? And you go, oh, yeah, no, of course I didn't. That sounds suspicious as fuck. So Murphy saying, you look, if there were any problems with the nursing homes, I would totally get the Department of Defense or whatever it is to prosecute. And also, if you're the guy who allegedly made the problems with the nursing homes, why would you then open it up to prosecution and let the media cover it if it's your own mistake? Wouldn't you want to cover it up and just bullshit about prosecuting it? So, of course, he's lying, and most people saw through that. You can see that by the immediate booing. They didn't really even have to, think about it for more than 2 seconds for them to start booing.
If we can ask the audience members to please keep it quiet. We want to try to get through as many questions as we can. Thank you. Mr. Murphy, I'd like to follow up with you with your overall COVID response. Hindsight is always 20/20. But knowing what you know now, what would you do differently? And do you have any regrets in the way that you handled this pandemic?
The thing that really bothered me was when President Trump mentioned, I think it was to Bob Woodward in the course of preparing a book, that he knew, and his administration knew earlier on a lot more than they were letting on, including the airborne nature of this. Any information we would have had earlier would have led us to act sooner. There's no question about it. I don't know that it would have led to different steps, but it would have led to steps that we would have taken sooner. Again, right now as we stand here tonight, we are among, if not the most vaccinated states in the country. We have the least percentage of ICU beds with COVID patients in the entire country. So as tough as it continues to be, I wouldn't trade our hand with any other state. Again, the conversation that I hear on my left here is about wiggle room on vaccinations and not so sure on masking. That's the conversation. That's like Texas. That's what happens in Texas. That's not New Jersey.
The reason New Jersey leads the nation in nursing home deaths is because the governor forced nursing homes to take in nursing home patients. And let's not forget the greatest number of nursing home deaths took place in our veteran homes owned and operated by the state. Under President Trump, the Department of Justice initiated 4 different investigations in different states on nursing home deaths. Only one investigation continues today under Joe Biden's Department of Justice, New Jersey, and rightfully so. And let me say one other thing. We had a scandal in New Jersey where no one died, and there were investigational hearings with subpoena power. Here we had a situation where people died, and there's no investigational hearings with subpoena power. As governor, I will advise for those investigational hearings with subpoena power to take place.
Mr. Murphy, you have 20 seconds to respond.
We're still digging out of the damage that Trump did in terms of masking and making it political. I mean, come on. And this guy has been with him every step of the way, speaking at a Stop the Steal rally. Let's focus on doing the right things based on science, data, and facts.
Should I tell you if I may, if those watching at home are playing that drinking game where you got to take a shot every time you hear Trump, I suggest they stop real soon because they're going to be bombed real soon.
Mr. Ciarelli,
Whoa, rewind the tape there. Hold on.
Based on science, data, and facts.
Should I tell you if I may, if those watching at home are playing that drinking game where you got to take a shot every time you hear Trump, I suggest they stop real soon because they're going to be bombed real soon.
Okay, that was not as cool as you'd expect, given that amount of clapping, really. So he almost stuttered there. It was pretty close, and you might see me stutter a little bit when I'm explaining this because I'm hearing this through my own headphones, and I'm hearing my voice at the same time, so it's hard to keep track. So imagine, so I'm listening to the audio of the computer through my microphone while hearing the audio of myself. So it's very disconcerting. So that's why I have a half a second of delay when I'm talking, and it's really like molesting my mind. Like I have a hard time struggling with it, but that's okay. Okay, so we're gonna keep on going. That wasn't that impressive, and let's see.
Ciarelli, our next question is for you tonight, sir, and it comes to us from Rutgers University, Eagleton Institute of Politics. In particular from Isaac Velez, an undergraduate associate in the class of 2022, and he asks this. Mr. Ciarelli, members of your party have recently passed and signed laws in Texas and Mississippi severely limiting a woman's access to abortion. As governor, would you take a similar course of action?
I would not. I have never advocated for repeal or...
Okay, let's rewind it to see the question.
Limiting a woman's
Okay, Mr. Ciarelli, members of your party have recently passed and signed laws in Texas and Mississippi severely limiting a woman's access to abortion. As governor, what would you do? Okay, so obviously I'm against abortion personally, but if I were the Republican candidate and my objective were to win in New Jersey, very blue state, what would I do? Okay, would I take a similar course of action? No, I wouldn't take a similar course of action. I feel like those bills were too nearsighted, too farsighted, whatever you want to call it. I feel like I would take a more nuanced approach. I feel like I would consult with reputable people and have them draw up the laws in accordance to a woman's right to choose. So I would be very vague and basically simp to the authorities of what the moderates and some of the left likes. So I would get their support and distancing yourself from this. What would you call it? These series of abortion bills from the far right of the GOP would be tactful if you do want to win. Now, of course, he's definitely not going to win, so I don't care.
access to an
But
abortion.
we'll see.
As governor, would you take a similar course of action?
I would not. I have never advocated for repeal or overturn of Roe v. Wade, and I've never not advocated for a woman's right to choose. What I have advocated for are things like parental notification. I think most parents would feel if their 15-year-old daughter was pregnant, they want to know. He doesn't support parental notification. So let me be clear, I do not support the new law in Texas. I consider that a form of extremism. But I'll tell you what else I consider a form of extremism. The bill that he wants on his desk that his own Democratic leadership won't post. It's a bill that will allow abortion in months 7, 8, and 9, as performed by somebody other than an MD. So no, I do not support the Abbott bill down in Texas, but I don't support Governor Murphy's position on abortion as well. I mean, who does that? Abortion in months 7, 8, and 9, as performed by somebody other than an MD? That's not New Jersey.
That was pretty mediocre. And also, his face kind of looks like Reagan's, but not the same amount of charisma. Whoa, rewind.
Assemblyman, my opponent consistently voted to defund Planned Parenthood. It's sad but true. Sad but true. You know who gets hurt by that? Underserved communities, women of color get hurt by that.
Oh my God, who fucking cares? Oh, the people of color. Oh, the people of color. Shut the fuck up, white guy, Jew, whatever you are. Knock it off. People of color. The guy behind you, that Guido, is brown as fuck, bro. Knock it off, man. So
And a lot of
boring.
women got sick, and a lot of women
Trite.
some women passed, and that did not have to happen.
Ugh.
A woman's right to choose needs to be protected at all costs. Her reproductive freedom needs to be protected at all costs, and that is a decision between a woman and her doctor. Period.
As I said, I've never advocated for overturning Roe v. Wade. I don't advocate for it today. But here in New Jersey, we do not support abortions being performed in months 7, 8, and 9. Nor do we approve of them being performed by somebody other than an MD. With regard to Planned Parenthood, let me say this. Thousands of women depend on Planned Parenthood for women's health, and I support women's health. My position is this. Why do we send all the money to an agency that advocates for abortion? There are a number of agencies across New Jersey that provide women's health that do not advocate for abortion. Let's send money to both.
I hope women are listening. That is a shocking statement. Women got sick, and some died as a result of those votes. 6 in a row, I might add.
Bill, it's time. Thank you.
Yeah, now let's move on to our next question. And for this question, we welcome Amanda Hoover from New Jersey Advance Media. Her question goes to Mr. Murphy.
Mr. Murphy, you've spoken of creating diversity in New Jersey's government and roles for women. But when working for your first campaign and administration, have detailed toxic and abusive behavior by male staffers. A legislative report found your top staff failed Katie Brennan, who volunteered on your campaign in 2017, when she came to them with accusations that another staffer, Albert Alvarez, had sexually assaulted her. How do you reconcile your outward progressive record on women's policies with the treatment of women who have worked for you?
First of all, I've apologized to Katie publicly and privately. And that experience, and her experience, her awful experience, has stayed with me and has informed a lot of the steps we've taken in the years since. First of all, there's no state government, no administration in this country that has the workplace protections and training that we have in New Jersey. There's no campaign, by the way, anywhere in this country that has the same workplace protections and training, including sexual harassment. By the way, a campaign that's majority female and run by 2 women. And there's no state more broadly in this country that is more supportive of anyone who has to go through something awful like that and is a survivor, whether it's the way law enforcement approaches it or all the way to the helping hands that reach out. Proud of the fact we've got a majority women cabinet, that we have diversity all over our administration, and we've stood for policies that have defended women, but those lessons have stayed with me and we've turned them into action.
You asked how we can reconcile that. You can't. I'll go.
The stammering or like sad delivery doesn't help at all. I feel really bad for these women. Shut the fuck up. Nobody cares. You're the leader. You're a man. You got to be strong and resolute and more or less be like Andrew Cuomo in this case and just deny what the fuck happened. And if you can't, then just try to blame other people, but don't say, I'm so sorry. You told me. I don't care. Nobody feels bad. Nobody cares about that girl. And the people that do are still going to vote for you because you're a Democrat. Nobody's opinion is going to change over a girl getting sexually assaulted allegedly 4 or 5 years ago under somebody's campaign. Nobody cares enough to change their vote on that basis.
Go as far as to say this has been the most anti-women governor we've had. Just ask the women.
What? Really? Oh, yeah, the feminists are going to be flocking to see it already, really.
Ask the women that worked on his campaign. Ask the women that played on his profession.
If the audience would kindly keep it down, we just need to move through. Thank you.
Ask the women that worked on his campaign 4 years ago. Ask the women that played on his professional soccer team. Ask the women that worked at the embassy in Germany. Ask the young women that worked in factories that when he was Goldman Sachs made pennies on the hour in manufacturing. We've seen this time and time again. Ask the women who were inmates at Edmond Prison.
Why don't you ask Sheila Oliver, who's sitting right there, my partner in government. A guy who votes to defund Planned Parenthood ain't a governor for women, period.
That was shitty delivery, and yet they ate that up because it's so partisan at this point that I don't see the Republican winning in New Jersey. And so, again, Chris Murphy just leaning back on the rail of Democrat Party institutional support is seemingly doing enough for him in the debate.
And ask the women in all the scenarios I gave you. Ask them about Phil Murphy.
Gentlemen, for our next 2 questions, we turn to Adriana Vargasino from Univision 41. She'll begin tonight with a question from Mr. Chiarelli.
Mr. Citarelli, nearly 1 of every 4 residents in New Jersey is an immigrant, 450,000 of them undocumented. Governor Murphy has allowed driver's license for undocumented people, additional approved financial aid for dreamers, and under the Immigrant Trust Directive, the Attorney General has banned local law enforcement agencies from signing corporations agreements with ICE. Do you agree with what has been done, or would you take back some of these measures?
I've said all along that we need a national immigration policy. We are not going to deport 14, 15, or 16 million people that came to this country that are undocumented. We need to put them on a path toward recognition. We need to do that. Governor Murphy seems to be very familiar with my voting record, so he will know that I voted for the DREAM Act. I was one of the few Republicans that did that. We're not going to deny young people who came here under no power of their own the opportunity to pursue their American dream. With regard to undocumented immigrants getting a license, I believe that's a great security measure. They're here. They're not going anywhere. Let's know who they are. Let's give them a driver's license. We don't have people on our roads driving without a license, without insurance, and what have you. So I celebrate New Jersey's diversity. We are the most diverse state in the union, and there's power and there's beauty in that diversity. And each one of the various ethnic groups of the state contributes greatly to our cultural diversity, our intellectual diversity, and our economic diversity.
So what would be your agenda in terms of immigration, Mr. Murphy?
I'm sorry?
For the upcoming 4 years.
Yeah, I want to echo.
Okay. He's going completely soft on immigration, which is probably not a good idea in New Jersey because on paper, yeah, there is a 250,000 of immigrants or 1/4 of New Jerseyans that are immigrants. And so you would want their vote, but not really because honestly, if you're going to win New Jersey, you just need to max out the suburban white vote. You know, the flipping the Puerto Rican vote and all that is sweet, but I mean, it's not going to put you over the top in most cases. So I don't see that as that valuable. Also keep in mind that part of the weakness of the Democrats in general is immigration. So if you want to make more headway with some white people in New Jersey, which is what you need to do, then hitting them on immigration would probably be the right thing to do in terms of hitting them from the right and not something to cook on like abortion or gay rights. So again, a mistaken path taken by this flaking Republican. Okay, let's see what Chris Murphy says.
I'll seize in a moment of common ground here and echo on the celebration of our diversity, particularly given this question, which has a disproportionate impact on our Latino communities. You mentioned the Immigrant Trust Directive, and that was a huge step that no state in America has taken, because when we were running 4 years ago, there were a lot of folks who wanted to cross that wire between law enforcement and immigration status. Those wires have been uncrossed forever, and that's the right thing. You've got a safer state when you've got folks, regardless of status, who feel confident to come out in the sunlight, engage their neighbors, law enforcement, elected officials. That's a safer New Jersey, and that's what we have today. We're going to continue on all of that if we're reelected.
Let me say this about New Jersey's first and second generation Americans. They're pursuing their American dream. They want to own their own business. What they don't want, because they chose New Jersey as their home, is a governor who says he wants to make New Jersey California the East Coast. He chose New Jersey for a reason. Because they want to own their business. They also don't want a governor who's saying if taxes are your issue, we're probably not your state.
Whatever.
Who says
If
that?
taxes are your issue,
Who says
taxes
that?
are your issue, and you're not a millionaire or the CEO of a big corporation, he's not your guy. I can promise you that.
What a shit-eating grin.
Okay,
What a
let's move on.
creepy-looking motherfucker, bro.
That one gets a wow.
Mr. Chiarelli,
Nibble
let's
looking
move on.
like
Now, the
Birdman in
question
this
for you.
bitch,
First, I'd like to
bro.
talk about the
What
continued
the?
racial divide when it comes to policing. According to an ABC-owned television station Equity report, overall, New Jersey police departments arrest blacks nearly 4 times more than whites and are more likely to use physical force against blacks after traffic stops than they are with white drivers. What would you do as governor to address these issues? And 2, when it comes to diversity on the police force, there's not one county in the state that has a police force that mirrors its population. In fact, there are 3 counties in the state that have a 100% white police force. What would you do to change this?
We need to come up with programs that do it better.
No, just Cite the FBI crime statistics. Seriously, come on.
Of recruiting people of color into our police ranks.
Fuck that.
Number 2, we need to do a better job of screening those who want to go into law enforcement to make sure they're of the right heart, mind, and soul. And 3, we need to find an easier way. We need to have an easier way to get rid of bad cops. That's what we need to do. But here's what we're not going to do under Governor Chatterell. We're not going to handcuff our cops. We're not going to disarm our cops. We're not going to demoralize our cops. This governor has supported an attorney general who's issued directive after directive after directive that has made it harder for our police to do their job. The job has never been harder. When have we ever had curfews on our Jersey Shore? When have we ever had flash mobs on our Jersey Shore? Why? Because our cops cannot do their job. They need to know that the top cop of the state, the attorney general, with the support of the governor, has their back. The men and women in blue.
Okay, this is a safe answer, but this is not moving the needle at all in terms of his election prospects.
This goes far beyond just finding bad cops and isolating them. What would you actually do to really have an influence here when it comes to blacks being pulled over a lot more than whites, and certainly when it comes to physical force during traffic stops? What policies would you institute to address these issues?
I'm not a law
None.
enforcement expert, but I will tell you this. Every appearance from those statistics, which are profound, says that we need a different type of recruitment effort, we need a different type of training effort, we need a different type of supervision effort. And we've got to continue to analyze those statistics that no one is being profiled, and there's no disparity in the enforcement of our laws.
So 4 quick points here. I'm the first governor since Governor Tom Kane to fund not 1 but 2 state trooper training classes in 1 fiscal year, and I'm proud of that. My opponent, as a freeholder in Somerset County, took actions that led actually to defunding the police. 10 sheriff's officers had to be let off. Sade, to your question, we know what works: transparency, accountability. Body-worn cameras are a huge step in the right direction, and they're now almost universally adopted up and down the state. That makes a huge difference. And lastly, at some point, we have to talk about guns. I'm proud of our record to make New Jersey the strongest gun safety state in America. But
Bullshit, yeah, look at Newark, yeah. All these black people with what, fucking Browning high power, I think they're, yeah, high points. Tech 9s, really? This guy's like, oh, I'm gonna ban AR-15s. Yeah. The fucking Bloods and Crips are really using ARs, bro. Yeah, shut
I
up.
feel sometimes my opponent is running for governor of Texas. He wants concealed carry. He wants more rounds and magazines. He
Based?
wants banning 50 caliber weapons against universal background checks. That's a big part of the law enforcement.
Yeah, well.
We have to get that out there.
Well, nothing the governor just said is truthful about me with regard to my voting record and my positions on those various matters. But again, directives like we've seen. For example, our local police now cannot take teenagers into custody and call the parents if caught with weed or alcohol. We used to call that community policing. That doesn't happen now in New Jersey because of directives under this governor. I think he's been very dangerous for children. Between what we've seen with them missing an entire year of public schools, with closure of the schools, all the remote learning loss, recreational marijuana.
Everything I said is a fact, so I apologize for letting facts interfere here. I did fund
Smug.
the second state trooper class. You did take
You
actions.
said that defunded police. I never defunded police.
You took actions when your police folks, you should look this up and take my word for it. He was a Somerset County freeholder. They went down 10 sheriff's officers because of actions that he took.
Yeah, we will revisit gun violence later on.
That must be true.
Important topic. But I want to stick with the issue of police for a moment, also an important topic all across America right now. Mr. Chiarelli, the Fraternal Order of Police, as you know, endorsed Governor Murphy back in 2017, but declined to do so this time around. Notably, though, they didn't endorse you either. What does that say about your support for police, their support for you, even as you are vocally critical of your opponent on this issue?
Quite frankly, Brian, the fact that they endorsed him 4 years ago and didn't endorse him this time around, I think says more about him than it does about me.
That's a good point, and that biased question was bull.
I enumerated what those reforms should be, but at the same time, we can't not have the back of the men and women in blue. We need to observe the rule of law here in New Jersey. And I will tell you, under Governor Chatterelli, we're going to let police do their job. And that includes, when teenagers are caught with weed or with alcohol, us taking them into a temporary custody and calling the parents. I haven't found a single parent across this state, Republican, Democrat, unaffiliated, black, white, brown, that doesn't want to know. That doesn't want to know. If their child was in public, smoking weed or drinking alcohol, parents want to know. We'll get back to observing the rule of law in New Jersey and supporting our men and women in blue.
Okay.
Governor, why did you lose the endorsement?
There are 2 candidates on the stage. One of them has 2 endorsements in this election from law enforcement. One of them has none. I have the endorsement of the state troopers and the Port Authority police, and I'm proud of that. And I'm proud of.
Oh, I'm the governor of the state, and these 2 state police forces endorsed me. Huh? Whoa, what? No way, he has 2 Shut the fuck up, dude. Seriously, come on.
Not easy, brother.
And the reason why they don't endorse Republicans in the state of New Jersey is because they know they're being more or less funded by the Democratic machines. So why would they contradict the Democrat? Them not endorsing the Democrat in the case of the previous law enforcement detail is significant because they're basically skating on thin ice in terms of funding and union benefits, but not endorsing the Democratic gubernatorial candidate. So yes, he's really fucking it up with the police in terms of popular support. And just because he's endorsed by people that he literally hires and fires and has the control to do that doesn't mean jack shit.
The way, the balance that was struck, and the deepening especially between law enforcement on the one hand and the communities that they serve on the other hand. When George Floyd was murdered, every state in the nation had hundreds, if not thousands, of protests. We are one of the very few, if not the only state that had very few incidents. Why? Because we've spent 3 years, at that point 3 years, deepening the engagement between law enforcement and the communities they serve, and it's working. We have more progress to make, without question, but it's working.
Mr. Chiarelli.
If everything the governor was saying was true, it would beg the question, why didn't the FOP endorse you? So maybe you should answer the question as to why the FOP did not endorse you.
My friend, why do you have no endorsements from law enforcement? Let's start with that.
You got it 4 years
claim to
ago.
be Mr. Law and Order. You claim to be Mr. Law and Order.
Governor, you got the endorsement 4 years ago from the FOP and the PBA.
You have no endorsement from law enforcement. Period. That's a fact.
Nor do you.
No, I have 2.
No, you do not have the endorsement of local police. State police and our local police are 2 different things.
Okay.
Thank you for
Gentlemen, let's move on. Mr. Murphy, I'd like to talk about property taxes. You know, this is a big issue.
It'll be the first time anyone's raised it.
New Jerseyans pay by far the highest property taxes in America, the average of almost $9,100 per household. This issue was clearly a popular topic on social media when we asked voters for questions for tonight's debate. Just the Fun One on Twitter asks, it seems everyone forgot all about our taxes. What are either of you going to do about it? My property taxes go up every year. So you have said you will lower property taxes by changing the school funding formula, but you haven't yet explained how. So how would you do that?
I think that's my opponent who actually said that. But here's
Yeah, please don't give him credit for that one.
By the way, if you're in a black or brown community, by the way, I hope you heard what he just said, because you're going to be crushed, and your kids will be crushed by his plan. It is unfortunately the truth.
That's a lie.
We inherited an affordability crisis. He was in the State House long before I got there. He rubber stamped Chris Christie's agenda at every step of the way, and we inherited an overwhelming affordability crisis. We have made progress on property taxes, but we have a long way still to go. But I'll tell you, if you're a working class family today, you're paying lower income taxes, you're paying less for health care, you're paying less for child care, you're paying less for college, you're not paying 1 cent more to ride at NJ Transit, and that's a fact. These guys.
So when the crowd is booing and clapping at the same time, the gullible people are saying, oh, wow, we're paying less than this and this and this. And then the people with an IQ over 80 are saying, wait a minute, you're fucking us on this one. So obviously these are going to be less bad, but you're overestimating the benefit that we get from marginally less costly tuition or lower income taxes when you're going to double our property tax effectively over the last 5 years. And for a guy that says, oh, I'm going to change taxes, you've had 4 years with a strongly Democratic government. Why the fuck have you not gotten it passed? Either you're incompetent or that hasn't been a priority for you. So that's not a winning issue.
This is a classic. These guys created a mess and they left it for guys like me to clean up, and we will do just that.
Mr. Citarelli, would you like to respond?
I've been going up and down this state for 21 months as a gubernatorial candidate, and all the things that he says that are benefiting people, I don't know where those people are because I don't hear from them. And I'm in black communities, brown communities, and white communities. I want to thank you for forcing him to talk about an issue you never hear him talk about. You never hear him talk about property taxes. Under Governor Citarelli, we'll have a new school funding formula that provides a flatter, more equitable distribution of state aids. I will not leave any student behind. I will not leave any community behind. I will not adversely affect the quality of education. Let me tell you something else we're not going to do. We're not going to send aid to people that own $1 million homes in places like Hoboken, Jersey City, and have them pay less in property taxes than a $400,000 homeowner in Tom's River, Hillsborough, Pacific. That's what's going on. That's what's going on, and he knows it.
Well, I'll tell you something.
Good take.
This election is the difference between continuing to move forward or going backward. And you just heard what happened here.
Backward? How?
If you're in
How?
You know, the tragedy is the progress that we've made in black and brown communities, especially, Sheila, am I right, especially urban communities, with the school funding.
What a piece of shit. And the people were laughing at him. He's like, Sheila, hey, hey, Token, I'm right? I'm helping the blacks. Shut the fuck up. This cracker talking about, oh, I help the brown people. Shut up, you patronizing asshole. You Republicans are just attacking the brown people. Stop babying the minorities, bro. They can stand on their own. If they can't, then they're incompetent too. But come on. White people need to get their fucking hands off of these black people. Jeez. Fucking fathering these people. Like, god dang.
That we have put to work has been overwhelmingly, but it's a job that is not yet complete. There are huge inequities that this pandemic, among other things, exposed. That flat funding formula, we already work with Tom's River and Hillsborough, but you crush black and brown communities, those kids who were already behind the 8 ball, you put them further back. And again, this is a difference between continuing to move forward or slipping back to the bad old days.
It is a lie to suggest that my formula is a flat funding formula. I didn't support it last time. It'll never pass muster with the state Supreme Court.
Okay, but really quick before we move on, Mr. Murphy, I have a follow-up question for you. You've raised taxes in the past, including the millionaire's tax. Will you pledge right now not to raise any taxes at any time in the next 4 years?
Yeah, I already have, and the answer is yes. We're done.
Yes, you.
100%.
They're all laughing at him.
You will not.
Him saying that is not enough.
Pledge to not raise taxes.
You pledge not to raise taxes at any time in the next 4 years.
At any time in the next 4 years, but I'm not making news tonight. I've been saying this for the past year. The answer is I pledge to not raise taxes.
And Mr. Citarelli, if you
His facial expressions are not helping. The lack of stoicism from the governor is not looking resolute
are
at
elected
all.
governor,
There will be no new taxes. His budget is up $11 billion in less than 4 years. That's more than 30%. Chris Christie's last budget was $35 billion. His last budget, because I plan on winning in November, his last budget is $46 billion, $11 billion more. He's raised every single tax and tolls. He has an insatiable appetite for taxes. And the reason is because he believes if taxes are your issue, we're probably not your state. He said it.
Got him. He nailed him.
I hate to let pesky facts get in the way, but you know why the budget is up, Assemblyman? Because of the mess you left. We haven't had a full pension payment in 20. Easy. We haven't had a full pension payment in 25.
He really told the crowd to be easy. This guy's losing.
years.
Also, look at the side. Okay, so Chris doesn't look too good, but he looks alive. The guy on the left, Chris Murphy, looks like a fucking zombie. His eyes look like they were caved in. He looks creepy as fuck. You know what? This kid would molest your kid. This guy would be creepy. He just gives off the wrong vibes, okay? I'm not accusing him of anything illegal. I'm just saying this guy is sus, man.
Put $6.9 billion into the pension system on one day. You and Chris Christie underfunded public.
He looks like he has glass eyes.
$2 billion. Somebody's got to clean up your mess.
Okay, Mr.
It's,
Murphy, thank you.
Jay, real quick, let me say this.
Somebody's got to clean up your mess.
It's real easy to make a full pension payment when you borrow $4.5 billion. You didn't need to.
Let's go! Let's
Before we
go.
move on, we are grateful to have a spirited dialogue on stage tonight.
Yoba.
Ladies and gentlemen, you made me a promise. If we could please refrain, these men would like a little bit more time to discuss the important topics at hand. For our
Shut
next
up.
question, we're going to turn now to Amanda Hoover.
I love
with
the
a question
crowd.
from Citarelli. Amanda.
Mr. Citarelli, you attended a rally in Bedminster shortly after the 2020 presidential election, where people held signs that read "Stop the Steal," and your opponent has accused you of pushing forward.
Oh my
Do you think
gosh,
the former
of
president's false
course.
claims of election fraud undermine our democracy?
This has nothing to do with the subject material of New Jersey, and yet they're going to bring this up just to make the Republican look
Would
bad.
you vote for him if he ran for president again?
So I said from the very beginning that Joe Biden was the president. He's a legitimate president. I said that before he was sworn in.
Gay.
Donald Trump's rhetoric is what led to the riot that took place, I believe it was on January 6th. In late November, I was invited to a rally personally by the organizer. He told me it was a rally focused on 2021, and as a gubernatorial candidate, would I please speak on the importance of the entire legislature being on the ballot this year, as well as the governorship. I went there. I didn't see people in the kind of apparel that we find offensive. I didn't see any of those signs. Okay, now, let me say this.
Now they're laughing at him
I
because
can
he's
hold
lying.
responsible. I've never held the governor responsible for attending rallies where people were holding signs that said defund the police or no justice, no peace. I can't be held responsible for what any person does at a rally. But I said from the very beginning, Joe Biden is our president. And I want our president, whoever he or she may be at any point in time, to be successful. Because it's un-American not to root for the president.
Mediocre answer.
Controversial. Listen, this rises to the level of disqualifying. Come
What?
on, man. Your picture and name were on the invitation. Your picture and name were on the invitation. There's video, I've seen it with my own eyes, of you standing there with a Stop the Steal sign right beside you. There were Confederate flags. There were white supremacists. It's the exact same cocktail that led to, it was January 6th, by the way. It was January 6th, and it almost brought our democracy down. Members of law enforcement were killed, including a native New Jersey son. Disqualifying, folks.
Well,
Bullshit. No law enforcement were killed in January 6th. The only guy that died, I'm pretty sure, was one that offed himself. That was his fault. And then second of all, it was only Ashley Babbitt that got shot, ultimately. So he's full of shit. This cocksucker is lying. Oh my god, he's so evil.
if you want to talk about disqualifiers,
See, before this, I thought, okay, Phil Murphy's a mediocre governor. He's substandard, but he's a Democrat. It's expected, all these people are bad. But then this guy, just fucking evil, creepy aesthetic. Unnecessarily creepy, too. I get your hairline's fucked. I get that you're old, but, like, the smiling, the eyes being as bad as they are, like, really? And then his stutter, all that, so annoying. And also, given the fact that, he is in a blue area. He's just relying so much on these bullshit slogans he knows are fake just to be
taxes are
governor
your issue,
again.
but probably not your state. Or saying that you want to make New Jersey the California of the East Coast, I consider those disqualifiers.
These people died, Assemblyman. People died.
You mean like the people in the nursing homes and dropping storm item?
Let's go!
One of the sort of baseline requirements for this job is you have to tell the truth.
I would agree. I would agree.
Let's move on. We return to
I agree, and you should agree to that, too. See, he missed the rebuttal to that.
Adriana Vargasino from Univision 41 for our next question.
But using the crutch of the nursing homes was very witty. Very
Mr.
good.
Murphy, climate predictions are dire for New Jersey, especially along the shore. Give us three things you can do at the state level so we don't see similar effects as Hurricane Ida or worse.
Yeah, I mean, these storms are coming with more frequency and more intensity. I just had a meeting yesterday with the Commissioner of the Department of Environmental Protection to go over specific plans. It's going to depend on what part of the state you're in, but on the shore,
Who
probably
fucking
some combination
cares?
of what the Army engineers have a combination of other hard assets by the year 2050. So you have to do and both. South Jersey, Irvington, and Washington.
Climate change is real. Human activity is accelerating it, and we need to do things right here and now to keep people out of harm's way. That includes
Gay.
funding for Blue Acres, so we get people that live currently in the floodplain out of the floodplain and commit those lots to open space. And the other thing we need to do is dredging.
Terrible.
We need to do that for people that live along the rivers. And we need to take more seriously when it comes to land use of developmental setbacks. I do believe the governor's energy policy is not realistic. It's not a rational transition. It's too much, too soon, too fast, and it's not the right deployment of public funds right now, to get people out of harm's way.
Not a convincing argument.
Too much, too soon, too fast. We are, as a planet, as a country, as a state, we are way late to this already.
You're not going to solve climate change one state at a time. We need a national energy policy that galvanizes the American people. That's what we need.
And both. And both.
Weak,
Okay, gentlemen,
weak.
let's move on. This next question is for you, Mr. Chitterelli. On September 6th, speaking before a town hall in Bergen County, you said this about critical race theory. Quote, with regard to critical race theory, let me say this. There's a recent study that showed that less than 15% of high school students in this country know that slavery was central to the Civil War. That would suggest that something's wrong with our public school curriculum. But at the same time, we are not going to teach that white people perpetuate systemic racism, end quote. So what did you mean by this statement? And if white people aren't perpetuating racism, who is? Or don't you believe in systemic racism?
Listen, I've been very clear on this issue, and thank you because you quoted it perfectly. I don't think we should be teaching our students that white people perpetuate systemic racism. I think we should be teaching our children as the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have others do unto you. That's what we should be teaching our children. We should be
So
teaching.
who do you think is teaching systemic racism?
The critical race theory has elements to it that suggest that the white person is the oppressor, and the black and brown is the oppressed. I don't think that's what we should be teaching our students, particularly at the younger ages. I think we should be teaching our students the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have others do unto you. I think we should teach them what Martin Luther King taught us. Judge people by the content of their character, not the color of their skin.
So do you not believe in systemic racism?
There is systemic racism, but I don't think we should be teaching our children that.
No, don't even concede the point. Why concede the point? Oh my god. I've seen hours of these autistic gay white guys debating about systemic racism, and not to belabor the point about it that you've seen a lot of right-wingers say, but ultimately conceding the point of it existing is just letting them win the argument on the long term. Why? So let's say Vouch has a completely illegitimate and bullshit justification of why systemic racism is a thing and why we need to rectify that. Therefore, he makes up a lot of stupid socialist stuff about more reparations, about police reform that is radical communism. And then what? And then the Republican will say, well, I believe that, we should help these black people, but this thing, and this thing is bad. So then what does Vouch do? Oh, well, okay, I'm going to moderate. How about affirmative action? What about this? And what about this? See, we already lost. They already got us halfway. That's not good. We're conceding ground. What we should say is there's no systemic racism. That is bullshit. Yes, prior to 1965, there were rules against minorities that were bad. But ultimately, since then, we've been fine. Now, that is not necessarily true because there's been some redlining in the 70s, and that wasn't entirely a bad thing. But there were certain things. But to let the left cling on to these technicalities to manipulate us and gaslight us into thinking that we're treating blacks wrong this year is bullshit. And so what you need to say is you have to play dumb and just say, you know what? 1965 and before, bad, but the last 50 years have been fine. And if you've had issues, it's at the cultural level and residual racism and not the government's fault. And any proposition is based on lies from the left. And even if they were true, the effectiveness is not there.
White people perpetuate systemic racism.
So I believe, by the way, this is year 402 since slavery first came to our shores. I believe with all my heart we need to teach our kids the whole truth, nothing but the truth. They need to understand. But regardless of what that means, I'm proud of what my wife has done working with our administration and the legislature. We're now going to teach climate change as part of curriculum. The Amistad Commission exists to teach the true reality of slavery and its impact on our country. I'm proud of the fact that LGBTQ plus, the real story and history, is being taught.
Shut the fuck up.
The last thing we need.
The real history about gay rights, really about like what the gay leaders that were fucking teenage boys. What about that? What about all the gross sex they were having to get all these diseases? Where do you think they get these diseases? What, from not fucking guys in the butt? Really? So they're teaching our kids about climate change, which is a hoax, more or less. And by hoax, I mean like it's over exaggerated. It's like COVID. It is overblown and not feasible to track down and conquer and to fix. And in terms of teaching CRT, that's also causing more racial divide, and I don't like that. And then we're teaching kids about gay rights in a positive light, which is going to make more kids gay, which is going to sentence a lot more kids to hell and just make the society worse. I don't want to deal with these gay people. I don't want to deal with the curriculum on top of that. Come on, disgusting pervert.
Thrown out there. We're all in this together.
Fucking Chris Murphy, Phil Murphy, gross.
Let's just teach our kids the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Mr. Murphy, let me drill down on this just a little bit, because Mr. Citarelli is not alone in the sentiment, as we've seen so vocally at so many school board meetings throughout the summer and into the fall. There are many who say that critical race theory has the opposite effect, that it does teach racism. What do you say to those people?
You have to teach the whole truth and nothing but the truth, including about slavery, oppression, racism in our country's history. We are the greatest nation on earth, but we wake up every day, as President Obama used to say, to try to perfect it even more so. We're not perfect, and we have to acknowledge the entire truth of our history. We have to look. I think you got to look in the mirror and be straight with yourself as an individual, as an institution, in our case as an administration, and as a state and a country. So let's teach the true history of slavery, oppression, and racism. And by the way, let's stand for policies that address the carnage. I got to supporting adult use marijuana not because of the jobs or the revenues, but because of social injustices, the damage that it did to particularly young black men. Those are the second chance agenda, where folks on probation and parole in our state can now vote. That's the right thing to do, to take specific actions.
We could have addressed social injustice with the decriminalization of marijuana, not the approval of recreational marijuana. And it's no accident that of our 565 towns in New Jersey, 400 have now passed local ordinances that have said no dispensary in my town.
Okay, Mr. Citarelli, let's talk about sexual orientation education. You recently said we're not teaching gender identity and sexual orientation in kindergarten, and we're not teaching sodomy in the 6th grade.
Based.
That inflammatory word, and what does that say about your acceptance?
How sodomy inflammatory? It is a legal definition. It is literally what it is. So what? That's like if I said I don't want to support penetration in the 6th grade. When did you use such a word for teaching about sex in the 6th grade? Shut up. It is literally what it is. Penetration, sodomy. It is what it is. And just because you have a bad connotation about it, and there's a stigma around the word, doesn't mean that the word's wrong. And if anything, that just proves that people that support gays are fully aware that what they do is gross and uncomfortable to hear, in terms of the word sodomy. Because we all know what happened to Sodom and Gomorrah. And it's a completely irrational thing to say, okay, well, sodomy is a bad word in terms of it has like negative stigma. But that's a good thing. It's there for a reason.
Of the LGBTQ plus community.
So I'm all about inclusivity, and I'm all about teaching. I'm all about inclusivity, and I'm all about teaching that bigotry and bullying is wrong. I'm all about teaching our students that virtues such as tolerance, mutual respect, inclusivity are
cringe.
But I believe there are certain subject matter for our younger students, K through 8, that are best left at the kitchen table between a mom and a dad and their child. So I would ask the question this way and answer your question. Why does Phil Murphy believe that we should be teaching sexual orientation and gender ID to kindergartners? Why does he believe that we should be teaching explicit sex acts to middle school students? I don't believe that.
Mr. Murphy, would you like to respond?
A lot going on at your kitchen table.
Well, isn't that the job of a parent?
We're going to decide.
So you're saying, but teaching the sex stuff is allowed at the kitchen table. Look how creepy he looks, by the way. He looks like a tranny. Ugh.
Isn't that the job of the parent?
Wasn't that the job of the parent? Exactly. So this guy is so perverted. He's so fucked up in the head. Phil Murphy's like, wait, so your parents teaching you the birds and the bees? Isn't that's so fucked up? Man, that's gross. We should teach them in school in front of a lot of other teenagers. What? The fuck? Apparently his parents didn't love him. Also, look at his teeth. His teeth are what, like 2 inches long? Like, my thumb is probably shorter than his, like, teeth. Like, his teeth are probably, like 4 pieces of corn put together. Fucking disgusting. You want fucking piano keyboard looking ass nigga.
Replace the parent. Yeah. You'd rather parents advocate parenting.
Remember what I said about drunk driving? That's what your support is consistent with. Vaccines. Let's.
Not teaching kids about gay butt sex is akin to drunk driving. He better say that, because if he doesn't, he's missing a chance.
Let's discuss
The question is about the public school curriculum.
I'm going to get to that, believe me.
He
vaccine,
missed it.
And now using a word which you well know is a dog whistle word. The word sodomy is not taught, and you know exactly what that word inflames, and it's a complete and utter offense to the LGBTQ+
The only thing that's getting inflamed is a gay guy's asshole.
community, and anybody who is alive or supports that community. How can you say that you're open-minded and you celebrate diversity when you use a word that is deliberately dog whistle to create another us versus them environment? Again, folks, forward versus going backward.
Okay, we're going to have to leave this topic right here.
Shut
We're gonna have
up.
to move on. We are nearing the end of this debate. Brian?
But the next question goes to Amanda Hoover from
Phil
New
Murphy
Jersey.
confirmed homosexual, by the way.
New Jersey has now legalized marijuana, but right now, as your opponent has stated tonight, if a child caught with marijuana for the first time, police cannot tell their parents. They'll never know about it. Do you think that part of the law endangers children, and would you change it?
Yeah, this should be the same format for alcohol, tobacco. This is adult use cannabis, 21 years and over, period. The industry is being brought together as we speak. I'm thrilled that we've been able to have an accelerated expungement process, over 360,000 expungements to put lives, again, especially
I'm breathing
young black,
hard.
Men back on their feet. Again, I got
Breathe in, breathe out. I just fucking hate this guy.
On drugs. We have the widest, when we came into office, the widest white, non-white gap of persons incarcerated of any American state. And the biggest reason was low-end drug crime. That's why I got to this. Is it going to create jobs? Yes. Revenue, build a new industry. I love all that. Let me also say this. Compared to we're not inventing marijuana. Kids are far more exposed before legalization of adult use than they ever will be after it.
That is retard. Really? Oh, so people are going to be less exposed to something after it's legalized? Like, how stupid is that? When it's legal and cheap for them to get, that's when it'll become easy. You fucking imbecile. How does that make sense?
We could have achieved social justice with what it is that I wholly supported, decriminalization of marijuana. This did not belong on the ballot because the devil's in the details, and now that it was approved by the people in New Jersey by being on the ballot, they don't like what they're seeing. I think they've got buyer's remorse. That's why 400 of our 565 towns, more than two-thirds, passed ordinance saying they don't want
That's a good talking point.
They learned that our police cannot take the leader out.
And
get it.
adult use marijuana, in the referendum passed by a very slim margin of 67 to 33.
People didn't understand the details.
Come on.
People didn't understand the details.
Okay, we want to...
Don't show your teeth, bro. They're fucked up, man.
Mr. Chiarelli, we promised we talk about gun violence. We want to get to it tonight. Homicide
Ew.
by gun or a 15%
Zombie-looking
so far
ass.
This year in New Jersey. As a former assemblyman, we talked about this before. You did vote against background checks, and you want to expand who can.
Bill Murphy, he repealed the Second Amendment.
That's not true.
People have a constitutional right to own a firearm. He constantly demonized law-abiding legal gun owners. Listen, I will be tough on crime every way. I will support the men and women in blue whose job has never been harder. There are a number of bills in the legislature that he wants on his desk that the Democratic majority and leadership will not put on his desk because they know it infringes on the Second Amendment rights. What he won't tell you about Jack Chiarelli is the last time I ran for re-election in this legislature 2014, I was the only Republican not to be endorsed by the NRA.
We've run out of time. Mr. Murphy. Yes, please.
That's cringe.
He supports concealed carry.
not true.
He voted.
Based.
It's true. That's not true. In fact, you said for certain professions like that, really dangerous one, realtors. You voted against background checks. You voted against banning 50 caliber weapons.
Talk
You
to female
voted,
realtors
you voted
that
against
go open
reducing bullets in magazines. We have the strongest gun safety laws of any state in America. You're going to make us less safe.
Talk to people that replenish ATM machines and female realtors that sit in an open house all day by themselves.
Okay.
You got to be kidding.
Okay, gentlemen, we are nearing the end of this debate.
Stop
We're
showing
running
your
out of time, but
teeth.
Before we go to closing remarks, let's end on something nice, shall we?
Sure.
Can you say
No.
one nice thing, something that you admire about your opponent?
I would absolutely say that. By all accounts, a great husband, a great dad. He's got 4 kids, one of whom serves in the U.S. Army. We'll keep him in our prayers, and I applaud him for that.
I want to
We'll keep him in our prayers. Why? Because the president is senile, and he might send him to his death.
thank the governor for his favorite baseball team, the Red Sox, playing poorly this past week, so my Yankees could sweep the series in Fenway Park.
Nice.
I do applaud the governor for his public service. Obviously, he's had a great deal of success. This is something he has to do, but he's doing it. I don't agree with the way he's doing it, but he is doing it.
Is there a specific policy issue
Gay.
that you support of your opponent?
I think I said this earlier. The assemblyman talked about a significant amount about celebrating our diversity. We're going to disagree on some specifics, but I said a half hour ago that we found some common ground, that we're the most diverse state in America, and we ought to do everything we can to celebrate that diversity.
I agree
Cringe.
with what he did with teachers, with the vaccine. He gave them a choice. You get vaccinated or you get tested twice a week. Give people a choice.
Okay.
That's not a good choice. That's not a valid choice. Either get the vaccine or get a cotton swab 5 inches up your fucking nose. Gross. Ew. I haven't been tested, but everybody who's been tested around me complains about it. That's gross. You might as well say, like, I'm going to stick my finger up your butt. I mean, it's very painful and violating. Gross. It'd be one thing if you said, okay, spit in this cup or pee in this cup. I mean, that's way different and way less intrusive. I mean, at least it doesn't hurt. But the cotton swab, like 8-inch cotton swab, like scraping your like brain area, like really?
Thank
Disgusting.
You. Well, we have now reached the end of our debate, and it's time to his
Gross.
closing statement.
Nah.
You will have 1 minute.
Am I up?
Mr. Murphy, go ahead.
Okay.
So there's no state in America like New Jersey. But for far too long, we have underachieved. We lagged. We let our people down. Those days are over. We have turned the page to a new era. And even in the midst of this overwhelming tragedy of the pandemic, it is sunrise in New Jersey. Tax equity for hundreds of thousands of middle-class families. Minimum wage going up for millions.
Stop
And
moving your
online
eyebrows. That's
schools being
creepy.
fully funded. More childcare to help out our moms. College more affordable. Healthcare more affordable. Women's health funded and protected. And all of this in the context of our extraordinary diversity. We have made so much progress, but our work is not done. We have to keep moving forward. We cannot afford to slip backward again. We cannot contemplate extreme leadership in this state. Serving as your governor has been and is the honor of my lifetime. I'm asking for 4 more years to finish the job.
Stop showing your teeth, man.
Mr. Chiarelli,
Stop.
final word to you, sir.
If you're happy with having the highest property taxes in the nation, if you're happy with having the worst business climate in the nation, waiting hours online at motor vehicles, month after painful month for your unemployment benefits, or the inability to get somebody on the phone in any department within our state government, vote for Phil Murphy. If you don't mind a governor who says he wants to make New Jersey the California of the East Coast, if you don't mind a governor that says if taxes are your issue, we're probably not your state, vote for Phil Murphy. Here's my focus. It's very, very simple. I'll lower property taxes with a new school funding formula. I'll create more jobs by fixing our tax code to make New Jersey the most competitive and attractive place in the country to do business, and particularly for small business. I'll go down to Trenton and I'll downsize and streamline, modernize our state government, which is inefficient, bloated, and be corrupted by special interests. The future of our state is at stake. And so this election season on November 2nd, I ask you to ask yourself, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? I ask for your vote.
Cringe. Cringe Reagan reference
Mr.
played
Mr.
out.
Murphy, thank you both. And that brings us to the end of our debate. We thank the candidates for taking part. And
Woo! Psych. Who cares? See if they shake hands. Okay, that was about to be awkward. Okay, so that is the debate in New Jersey. Okay, so we have the Italian versus the Irishman. Alleged Irishman, anyway. So, yeah, that is the debate. Insofar as who I think won, I think that was definitely the Italian or the Republican, Citarelli. Yeah, the Republican definitely won that debate. Now, was it as much as he needs to win? No, not even close, in fact. I think that the Republican probably did a 6.5 to a 7 out of 10 performance. It was above average, not great. And insofar as Phil Murphy, he bombed. I'd say he did a 3 or a 4 out of 10. If this debate were in a swing state or anything within 5 points, the Republican would definitely win based off of the debate because he basically the attacks lobbied at the Republican didn't really stick, and he got some good jabs at the Democrat. So by that logic, the Republican did win by a substantial amount, not enough to win, obviously. So if the probability of me saying that Phil Murphy would, I said he has a less than 20% chance of losing. So by that logic, I would say after this debate that there's probably a 10 to 15% chance that the Republican wins the election in November of 2021 this year. I honestly just do not think that he did what was necessary to win. He would need an amazing performance to even have a solid shot, but he doesn't have that. So because of that, I really do see Phil Murphy probably winning this election by anywhere from 7 to 14 points. Now, that is a pretty wide net, but given the fact that the recall went the way it did, I honestly do think that it's going to be very easily a Democrat win unless something crazy happens. But yeah, no, Phil Murphy's optics were awful. His rhetoric was mostly garbage, and delivery was also pretty substandard. Whereas with Citarelli, the delivery was above average. He kept his composure. His rhetoric was above average as well. So, again, not amazing, but still good job. So, by that logic, I would say that, again, he did a 6.5 out of 10 versus Murphy's 4 to a 3.5 out of 10. So, yeah, I performed him by 3 to 4 points in terms of debate performance. That is all. Thank you for watching. And if you're in New Jersey, I would prefer the Republican, but the Republican is not a great candidate. Okay, let's keep that in mind. All right, thank you for watching. I'm gone.